There are very few people in the world who like how they look. Many of us struggle with our opinion of our appearance, which affects our self-esteem. We believe we would be better if we could change our... Insert the particular flaw you hate here. The inability to accept how we look is not rational or logical, but it is real. It can definitely affect our ministry. While I do not want to be insensitive to our struggles, we're not talking about how fat, bald, short, skinny, or generally ugly we are, except in how our appearance relates to discovering the mission God has assigned you and your band to do. Try to set aside your struggles with your appearance for the moment and look as objectively as possible at some of the basics. 2 premises. We must start by believing that for the most part, God created us to look like we do now. Obviously, there are things we can or could do to slightly change how we look, but unless we get into very extensive plastic surgery, our appearance is not going to radically change. We can take the basic characteristics of our appearance as clues to our mission. It's also true that we most easily connect with and relate to people who are most like us. Missionaries have known for a long time that people coming in from another culture will always be less effective than indigenous people. That's why the most effective mission organizations usually send leaders from another culture to start the movement and then train indigenous people to do the primary missions work. In the past, Christian musicians most often chose to target either the people who purchased the most music or a specific missions group. We changed our appearance and our music to reach those people. Paul said that he became all things to all people in 1 Corinthians 9:19-23. Most of the time, the musicians who changed their appearance were doing it with really good motives, either to target a smaller group of people who were not being reached by the church or to reach as many people as possible. The artist who wanted to reach as many people as possible attempted to support themselves primarily through music sales and labels. Their appearance changed to reflect whatever the mass market desired. The artists attempting to connect with a smaller, largely unreached group attempted to fund their work primarily through self-sacrifice and donations, much like missionaries. Their appearance changed to reflect the culture they were attempting to engage. Artists who tried to reach as many people as possible were accused of being all about the money. And artists who tried to reach smaller people's groups were accused of copying a culture and mimicking specific secular bands because they weren't good enough to make it on their own. Whether the accusations were true, partially true, or not true at all, the effect was the same. Although there was a great impact, the full potential impact of Christian music ministry was diminished. Today, things are very different. Both technology and culture have changed. Mass market strategies are becoming less effective by the minute as people embrace words like local, connected, genuine, and original. We see the shift in everything from the kinds of foods we want to purchase to the more minimal and sustainable lifestyles we want to live. People no longer buy music because a label sinks money into marketing an artist as the latest, greatest cool phenomenon. We buy music because the songs and the artist's stories touch us somehow. So today it's important that Christian musicians are honest, open, and genuine in both their faith and their culture. Today more than ever, music ministers need to be who we truly are, with all our imperfections available for the world to see. How does your appearance affect your band's mission? Let's start by looking at your age. Many of us would prefer to ignore our age. Those of us who are older would like to think we're younger, and those of us who are young like to do more mature things. In this section, we're not trying to change your looks to appear younger or older. Your age is what it is. Accept it and work with what you've been given. We are, however, going to take a realistic look at how your age affects your band's mission. Traditionally, in the music industry, artists started their careers as young as possible, hopefully being signed in their late teens or early 20s. With the exception of only the very top tier of artists, most musicians' stage careers generally ended when artists reached their 40s, and quite a few did not last that long. Some artists were able to make the shift to other areas of music, such as studio musician or teacher, but many left the industry altogether. The good news is that today, the former music industry scenario does not have to be true. In the past, the music industry could only afford to work with whichever artist sold the most music. The demographic who historically bought the most music was teens and young adults. So when an artist aged out of that market, the industry could no longer afford to support them, again with the exception of only the very top tier of musicians. Technology has changed everything. The cost of making music has decreased so dramatically that we can now afford to reach fans from every age group, even though they buy far less music than teens. This means that musicians no longer age out of the market. This also means our ability to minister to every age group is greatly expanded and targeted. The way things are now, we can focus on ministry more than music sales. It has long been accepted by pastors that the easiest and most effective people to minister to are their same age or slightly younger. Typically, older people feel that younger people do not have the life experiences and wisdom to effectively minister to them. Younger people often question if older people understand the current culture and how it affects their particular situation. This same mindset is true for fans of Christian music ministers. Most often, our most effective ministry, and therefore our mission, will be centered toward people our own age or slightly younger. That means if you're 40 years old and still trying to market your band to youth groups, you're probably not going to be very effective. Ouch. Most of us do this because we still believe the music industry model we discussed previously. If we can believe that we do not need to target the teen market in order to make it as Christian music ministers, we can move on from that model into more effective ministry. In the same light, if you're 18 and performing music for 50-year-olds, do not expect them to respect what you have to say or to seek you out for advice. For the most part, they'll tell you how cute you are and how much you encourage them by demonstrating that the younger generation is not lost, meaning you're like them. Those who do this are generally playing music that you feel is safe and what you've been brought up with. This does not necessarily mean you're doing the most effective ministry that God has for you to do. The challenge? Look in the mirror, admit to your age. Have you chosen to target an audience that's slightly younger, less than 10 years, or your same age? If not, you probably need to adjust your target audience. This should not limit you to playing only the most popular genre within your band's age demographic. It should inspire you to choose a target audience and music style for the most effective and impactful ministry. Of course, there are always exceptions. Family ministry is one of them. If your band is made up of several family members of varying ages and you have targeted family or children's ministry, then your age may become less relevant. Classical music is another exception. Classical musicians are typically hired much more on musical skill than on marketability, so your age is not as much of a consideration. The problem with exceptions is that we like to feel special, so we like to be the exception. Those of us who are older like to think we look far younger than we are. Many of us who are younger like to believe we look older than we do. The truth is that most of us relate best to our peers. Be realistic. You and your band might truly be an exception, but do not use being the exception to excuse a poorly targeted ministry. In the end, it all comes down to this: be effective in bringing people closer to Jesus. If your band is not as effective as you think you could be, change what you're doing. Now let's look at your race. Yes, your race can help you define your mission, but not in the way it did in the past. For the most part, we no longer live in a segregated 1930s society. Now your race must be culturally relevant to, but not necessarily the same as, your target audience. Say, for example, that you want to minister to middle-class Caucasian young professionals. Do you need to be Caucasian? Not necessarily. This particular group of people is receptive to many races and often is more intrigued by other cultures than their own. But now say your target audience is elderly Caucasians who live in the South. If you are any race that is not Caucasian, you probably are not going to be effective and should consider changing your target audience. We cannot change our ethnicity, but we can use our race to guide us to an appropriate target audience. Let's consider your height and weight. This is not for judgment, simply to look at how your height and weight relates to your target audience. which is a large part of defining our mission. It's okay if you're female and do not have the body of a movie star or a fashion model. Simply recognize that junior high girls may not be as receptive to your music as women who can more easily identify with how you look. Women who look similar to you can relate to how you feel about how you look, so it's easier to minister to them. If you're male and not built like a football player, don't try to build a ministry around football players. If you're 110 pounds and 5'3" tall, you might not have a ministry with motorcyclists, but computer geeks might love you. Find out which audience can best identify with you and minister to them. Finally, let's look at your sense of fashion and style. This is one characteristic of how we look that can most easily be changed. But remember that we're no longer trying to fit into a certain culture by changing what we wear. We're using who we truly are to connect with and relate to other people. If you're going to change what you wear, change it to more accurately reflect who you are. In other words, use your outside appearance to help people see your heart. If anything, we may want to exaggerate our style. Are you a geek? Go full-on geek with your apparel and hairstyle. Are you a hippie at heart? Let's see those bell-bottoms and long hair. Your sense of fashion and style, when it reflects who you truly are, will enhance your story and help you connect with your target audience. If it doesn't, you need to change your target audience, not who you are. Today's fans expect musicians to be genuine, real people with an interesting story that relates to their lives and touches their hearts. Now there's no such thing as music ministers not having the correct appearance or look, because there are millions of people who can no longer relate to or connect with what the music and fashion industries present. We no longer have to change ourselves to fit the music market. Now we have the freedom to be ourselves and identify the people who will most benefit from knowing us. One of the best tools we have developed for you at Christian Band Help is the Christian Band Handbook. This resource book covers topics such as defining your ministry's mission, how to find the right band members, choosing and protecting your band's name, copyrights, press kits and booking, music marketing, how to make the most of your ministry dollars, and a whole lot more. We know what it's like to be a Christian musician. Between us, my husband Mark and I have over 60 years of experience in almost every aspect of music ministry. I wrote this book so you can learn from our experience. We want to help you launch your band on the journey to impact the world around you while avoiding the pitfalls along the way. The Christian Band Handbook is available as a paperback or ebook on Amazon and most ebook retailers. For more information, go to christianbandhelp.com, click on Store on the navigation bar, and then click on Christian Band Handbook. Or you can click on the link directly below this video.